Hello, Global Theater. My name is Gerry Fialka. Today is October 19, 2025. Want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Also want to thank Adam Rosen for introducing me to today's guest, Randy Funk. Randy, this is part two. And where in the funk are you calling from?
I'm in I'm in Connecticut. I'm in Rowayton, Connecticut. Planet Earth. Straight to you from the Zeta Reticulan galaxy of total possibility.
You're articulate and concise, dude. I loved having this time with you again. And we started out in the green room before we started. And we're just about to start. So time space continuum has got flipped.
Right.
The favorite book of Frank Zappa was More Than Human by Theodore Sturgeon. Just happened to be the favorite book by Phil Lesh too. And you said, "Oh, I know a little about that, and I could tell you why it was Phil's favorite book because you worked with Phil." So go ahead.
Well, I mean, I don't know if that's why I know. I can deduce that probably. I think the major theme in that book was, these cats could come together and do something more than the sum of the parts, so to speak. I think that's probably that's really, that's the essence of the Grateful Dead, I would say, on at least one dimension. I think, music is a vehicle for having that happen a lot, actually. In any situation that's musical, I might venture to say that might be the underlying point, right? At least with humans, or maybe even not with just humans. But the idea of music being generated, it's to give you a glimpse at something that's greater than the sum of its parts. So there's the long-winded answer as to why I think these musicians might like this book. I think in the context of shared experience, it probably presents itself as, one of the reoccurring possibilities, pardon my own pun there, of the universe, which is to be involved in something that's greater than, just you, and have some semblance of residue from that experience that you can maybe take to your brothers and sisters on the planet, right?
Yeah,
That's it.
it's really cool, Randy, because I wanted to touch on a lot of things because we covered a lot. And, that question is so general when I ask you, what is the function of music?
Function.
And, yeah. And
Randy function of music. No, I'm just kidding.
And we went through a lot there. And, I like my one friend. I didn't get to the bottom of the list, but one of the middle of the list is connection and community. So that we know that music works because it's an involvement thing. Like I started before we hit the record button with Tom Waits' quote, "The best music doesn't want to be recorded." Me and you never lived in an era where there was no recording of music. So right. pre that era, it was probably more a ritual in a shaman. You were used the word shaman thing. It was sort of like a religious thing. In go ahead.
I wouldn't say it's any, it's not any different, at least for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to, speak about the, idea of, more than humanness in the context of what I said about becoming greater than some of your parts. The thing that's interesting about that is the sum of those parts happens to be an alien. That's the weird thing about it.
In the book, you mean?
No, I mean in reality.
Oh, in reality. Okay.
It's one thing to talk about, the idea of connectivity and, the getting to that point through communion and music and whatever. It's another thing. The experience itself is what I'm trying to talk about.
Yeah.
I think we could, I don't care how you get there. I'm just saying that it's weird that, the collective consciousness in a greater sense of its participants happens to also have the concept of an alien. That's weird.
Yeah.
I think Phil
Well,
would probably agree with me. Maybe.
I mean, he was a deep thinker, and I appreciated the one thing I loved is that he supported experimental music big time with his grants and, you know,
Yeah.
supporting avant-garde composers.
I was talking to him about, well, I had just finished working on this McCoy Tyner recording. And I was just talking to him because I was just thinking about some of those Grateful Dead jams in the like early 70s. I think maybe we talked about it last time. I can't remember. But I was just thinking that a lot of them sounded a lot like some of the stuff I had been recording with McCoy, So I was just kind of like, hey, some of those 72 jams have like this kind of like, McCoy kind of jazzy improv vibe, especially like playing in the band. Even Uncle John's band, I'd say, has that in there,
Yeah.
and now in those years,
Yeah.
being a deadhead of sorts. But I mean, I felt like he agreed with me because I felt like he was super into McCoy, and then I was like, well, Schofield's on the record, and Schofield was the guy that was playing with him that night, so maybe they had something to talk to before they went on stage. I don't know if he knew that before he was about to play with them, but I mentioned that John was on that record. So he's, I kind of thought that was cool.
Yeah. But here's the thing I'm going to read you, and it's a couple sentences. It's by Edmund Carpenter, who's an anthropologist who was one of the first guys to give the camera to the people he was filming and let them film. And
Right.
he made a couple great books and had a big influence on McLuhan. And my friend I interviewed yesterday, who worked with Ola Tunji, best friends with him.
Yeah, Baba.
Yeah, he says he introduces this piece in his essay. He goes, "We repeat and revise. We play to pay attention." And Marshall Souls wrote this book, "Play Attention" instead of "Pay Attention." But
Right.
this is Carpenter in 72. Pre-literate art is not unlike modern advertising, much of which is sung and all of which is highly repetitious. Advertising isn't designed to train perception and awareness, but rather to insist that consumers merge with image and products. Such art isn't personal. It doesn't reflect the private point of view of an innovator.
Right.
It's a corporate statement by a group. It's a public celebration. It lives within each member through memory, participation, and improvisation. That's sort of, and that's the end of the quote. That's sort of like what is the deadhead phenomenon: memory, participation, and improvisation, in a lot of ways.
Well, it's also tribal. I mean,
and it's tribal. And you studying anthropology,
I told you about that. Oh man, no one's supposed to know about that.
Right. You studied primitive art and all that.
I was gonna literally show you the shield I have over there when you started reading that quote about the finite form of the way that it, because that's like tribal art 101, take a really finite structure and sort of use that for magical purposes of the universe. That's like, that's what we do.
Right. And this is funny because I wanted to say one more thing and then let you delve into it a little. Moon Zappa wrote an article recently for Newsweek magazine. And she said, I was in the valley and I saw some graffiti and it said, "Not all cults are bad." Now, we've demonized cults. Okay, we know that. And that's fine. But I studied the word cult, and what it comes from: culture, which is growing. And Mallarmé, the great symbolist poet, said music is a cult. So I mean, that's like, that's like the Dead. They're a cult. I mean, I'm in the Zappa cult, and me and you are in the music cult.
You're in the Finnegan's Wake cult.
We're in the Finnegan's Wake cult. But again, it's like, it is, each member is through memory, participation.
I mean, I'm fundamentally anti-group, though. That's the problem.
Okay, well, that's what I would love you to address.
I'm not.
How do you navigate? Because
I can't be a part of anything, actually. It's actually like fundamentally not even like I'm trying not to be. It just winds up never happening. I can't seem to join any common human intention for some reason. for very long, you know. I mean, bands are different, maybe a little different, but not all that different. Yeah, it's weird to have a fundamental human trait be community, and then at the same time I kind of like don't have much to do with it from a personal level, other than like my conversations with people that I might have, like, or like, you know, the ingestion of music, as you said. I you know, it's just like, I don't know. I mean, I kind of, I guess maybe all groups are fundamentally immoral in some way, you know?
Yeah.
It's,
Well, it goes to the Groucho and George Carlin. I'll never be a member of a group that would have me as a member.
I just said that to someone 2 days ago. It's really funny you brought that up. I feel that way, you know. I mean, I exactly feel that way.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, all this stuff that is the result of this more than human quote that plays into the idea of human beings coming together to do something that's greater than the sum of the parts. You know, what happens is that, you know, it starts out, you know, almost by accident, that something amazing that's shared, possibly repeatable, can happen. And then some cat wants to organize it. And that's when it is over for moi. You know?
Well, you know, Randy, I worked for George Carlin for a half a year, and we got a flyer in the mail, and it nailed all this. It said, I'm trying to get more control over my spontaneity.
Yeah, you know.
Oh, so, you know, I mean, what you're saying there is something that really intrigued me in part one, was when you said, of all these people you played with and worked with, that your initial thing with Adam was probably the you're most proud of. But then you explained how you guys got in this band and you were like the younger guys, and it was all about the relationship. It's like media ecology, or ecology is an organism's relationship with its environment. So it's the relationship. You're not just playing music in your bedroom. You had to play with Adam, then you had to play with other people, then you always have to. So it's always a phenomenon in that regard, but it's also, you said, oh, I look at the guy in the front row. So it's also an awareness of the audience.
Oh yeah, you know, it's funny. It's really funny you said that, because I was just talking to my wife about when that moment that band happened. I literally was talking to her about it 10 minutes ago, which couldn't have been known. I was just sitting outside, and I was like, you know, because I have kids and things like that now, and you know, they're musicians, and you know, she was saying, I was just recounting to her, like, you know, the journey of being like, thinking I was cool in like 6th grade, to realizing I was totally not cool in like 7th and 8th grade, making the Puce Moment record with Adam, which may be the greatest thing I've ever done. And then like sort of trying to think that I was cool again, entering high school, and then realizing that was going to fail miserably again, finding a band with these older guys that weren't cool, but they were because they were older, right? and then instantly being much cooler than everybody else, because now I'm in a band with these older guys. And I was just talking about that, you know, in the relationship of the stuff you go through as a parent with like kids and acceptance into cliques and silliness like that. So I literally was just talking about, you know, the journey of how it all kind of folds back in this silly way. But you know, it did happen that way, you know, I think it probably happens that way to a lot of people, you know?
Yeah. And you know, that great line, I might have said it part one, is, what is the greatest era of science fiction writing? The 20s, the 40s, the 60s, the 80s. And they say, when you're a teenager. So the greatest era for anything in your life probably is when you're a teenager. And then that what resounds with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I don't know if that, I mean, I don't know if that's true for me necessarily. I mean, I don't think, maybe I haven't peaked yet. No. Yeah. And, you know, I don't know. My thing, I don't know what my thing is. I can't.
Yeah, but leads perfectly to the next question. And that is, one person told me, what's the function of music? He said, to hypnotize people to be themselves. Now that is a weird one to tear down, because
Yeah.
what is thyself? And then here's the real part. The real part of the question is what we're talking a little about in this intro is identity. And your guy was sort of Krishnamurti, my guy was kind of McLuhan. They both said the same thing, that violence is the human search for identity.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And so I'm just curious, your thoughts on this phenomenon of identity. Alan Watts says, if you figure out who you are, you're fucked. But in essence, we're kind of talking about that. Well, what were you like with Adam? What are you like now? You're seeing your kids. What is, yeah.
I'm not. I mean, the thing that's talking to you is the same. The thing that's, I don't really necessarily come from a place of, stored up knowledge, I guess. I don't know how the past, I don't have a relationship with the past that much, in the sense that, like, it shapes all that much. I think as far as what I gather, you're maybe asking me in terms of identity, like where, it's like the answer to the question is kind of like yes and no at the same time. It's like, I'm decently versed in what it means to be like the entity Randy Funk on this planet to the people that I interact with. He's got the hair thing and, that, and, whatever I might say to somebody. But I don't know about like, I don't know what people, I have no idea. I think I feel like there's a part of me that's, that will, there's some sliver of my essence that will probably continue on forever, and then there's sort of these temporary aspects of, the projection of that thing out here in this dimension. So, I don't feel like they're ever not aligned, or there's an identity that necessarily changes. I think cats, get a little more aware of that. And it is through violence, because, most people think of identity as sort of like some fixed thing, or, who you are in this dimension and all that. And really, I would just say that's all just different forms of kind of siloing off separation, like how groups like to do that. They just want their own identity. That's the whole point. It's all right on an individual level, it happens all the time. And that's why cats get caught up in, being separated without even realizing it. It's so subtle. It's all of a sudden you're this thing that has a opinion about that thing. All right, well, guess what? You're not going to really ever figure out the whole thing. You might be right on one side of the equation and be totally wrong on the other. So there's that. But I read something, some cat was writing about, well, truth is just, everyone's kind of perception around the horn. And I'm like, no, it's not. Truth doesn't need your participation to be true at all. I was thinking about it. So that's why I say it's yes and no at the same time. We're kind of like self-perpetuating this concept of who we are in time. And that's one thing. But on the other side, it has nothing to do with it, because the whole concept of time never happened, or it never had to happen. So somewhere within those two dichotomies lies Randy Funk.
No, that was good, because I'm glad you returned it, Randy, to the word violence. Fill in the blank. Anger can be a productive emotion when
the total perception of anger.
Yeah.
What?
No, anger can be a productive emotion when fill in the blank.
When you perceive it in its totality in a given moment.
I see. Yeah. Is perception reality?
No.
Good. That is good. So let's go to this word symmetry, which really got me a lot in our first part. So I did the etymologically deep dive into it, it means a couple little things it says and where the word, it's a made up word, but humans say, well, it's made up and it comes from these kind of thoughts or ideas. Now, the thing I love about etymology is every once in a while it says of unknown origin. Well, every word is of unknown origin. They're all made up, but we think some words are more valid. Like you keep saying the word cats. I love that. I think the coolest words that we use, if you study them etymologically, they all came from the hoodlums in the back alleys of London.
Yeah, totally.
Here's symmetry. Here's some of the places it came from. Agreement in dimensions, due proportion, having common measure, harmonic arrangement.
Wait, what's the word? Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, what's the word?
Harmonic arrangement.
That's the word?
Well, that's some of where the word symmetry came from.
Symmetry. The word is symmetry.
The word is symmetry, and it came from these ideas, these words. Okay. And the last one is the human body, the beauty of form. But, here's the thing I wanted to go. And then you talked about order and chaos. So you took the opposite. Well, what's the opposite of symmetry is chaos. Order is sort of symmetry, if I got you right. But I know these people
I might amend that for this discussion, but keep going.
Okay, go ahead.
I might say that symmetry actually is the structure that encompasses both order and chaos.
Yes, okay.
Both. Like that. That's better.
Okay. Now here's the funny little thing I learned once, and knowing tribal art better than me, that there's some people who weave rugs. Yeah. And it's perfectly it has perfect symmetry, but they put one little flaw on one side to, maybe to see if anyone's really paying attention or to make it unique or for whatever reason. So it looks symmetrical, but it really isn't.
Hold that thought.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got to do it. You keep pulling stuff out, man. I don't know if you mean to be doing this, but you must be talking about this. So you see this thing here?
Yeah. Okay, what is it?
Well, if you can see that, you'll notice that's the only one that's different than any of the other ones.
I see. There's one little different, but it looks overall symmetrical.
Kinda.
Yeah.
Well, this was a manuscript on the axial and radial symmetry components of tribal and band art, just so you know I'm not crazy, but that is what's going on there. I don't know if you can see that stuff.
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah.
But that's like this dude, like that I just happened to become friends with, was obsessive about and maniacal about lists of things that he could relate different other things to. And it kind of wound up being mostly about tribal art and band village design across the planet. And so that was the cover of the manuscript. And I always wondered why. I asked him, I said, why did you put that one in there that was like not, and it was just the kind of yin of the yang thing.
Yeah.
Like it has the seed of the other thing, the opposite thing, the not that thing in it. And that was for some reason, that's important in structural systems, is to have that one X factor thing that opens this door to something massively not that. So yes. And
that's it. That's really heavy, because the other word you used, well, I wanted to show you one thing, because you brought up Finnegan's Wake and taught me that great word in Finnegan's Wake, bisexual. Check this out. When I Googled Joyce, Finnegan's Wake and symmetry. Check this. That's when he was born. 1922. And at the numerology, 22 is a reflection of itself. It's an amazing number. But that's like Joyce resonating with what you said. The other word, Randy, you brought up that really enlightened me was golden mean. And I looked it up, and it sort of took me to this thing called the golden ratio. Which they said it was the ideal middle ground between two extremes.
Mm.
So I thought, well, that sounds like McLuhan's resonating interval, that it's that tactility isn't my hand touching my hand. What tactility is the space between my hands touching.
Right.
That's what tactility is. But that's just his, poetic bullshit. But basically, I wanted to ask you about, does that relate to alchemy? Because alchemy is tertium quid, is where you take two known things and you put them together and you come up with a third unknown thing. And so is there any resonating thing in that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's that's the whole point. That's how you traverse dimensionary shifts in the tree of life. You have to balance between what your mind has deemed already manifested, or even what your mind is deemed going to manifest, with the balance in between that of the infinite possibility that could arise of not buying into a particular reality pathway in any given moment. So, to consider the idea of a vibration or sound wave or an oscillation, is important here. It plays into the thing that you're talking about, certainly amongst compressing to the point of almost touching. That's where the possibilities start to blur the line between you manifesting it and it manifesting itself. And that's where the creative moment lives, right there. And it's also where the possibility for quantum time travel exists, right? It's also where the free energy device portion of this stuff exists, and it's probably where the Easter Bunny hangs out. That's good.
That's good.
That. And so maybe I'm always trying to set up for that.
Yeah.
If there's if you're talking about violence, you're violently setting up for that all the time,
Yeah.
Until you see the reality of it all kind of at once. That's the more than human part, and also that's basically what this alien entity did wind up saying to me. So
amazing.
It makes sense in practice and experience for me. Not so much, when I hear myself say it conceptually, in linguistics, they kind of fail because you don't get the feeling that it's like to be involved in that moment. And that's maybe as an artist, that's all I'm ever really trying to do, or even as a human, I mean, really, or as anything. But it does get tough to deal with it in terms of linguistic structures until maybe you can, I don't know. I tend to think of language as sort of multidimensional anyway, but that's not necessarily how your brain normally processes it, So, it's all true. It's just, it comes down to your own individual perception of something. So,
well, Randy, that's what I wanted to delve into next, is the word truth. Louis Buñuel said, "I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it." Now, most people go, "That's so cool." And one guy finally said, "Dude, that's bullshit, because if I'm going to seek something, it's because I want to find it." So then I morphed it into the question, if the journey's more important than the destination, why do we even have to name or seek a destination?
I don't think there's a journey or a destination.
Yeah.
You might live your whole life and thought there was. Yeah. I'm doing that. I'll do that. I'll buy in here and there. There's nothing wrong with coming up with an idea for yourself, right? Okay, we're on a journey, and the destination doesn't matter. Okay.
Yeah.
What, if you're talking about truth, it probably has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
So I get it when, the first dude said, I'm not there anymore because you said you found it. That's the idea of organizing, a religion or something. That's the idea of like, I've found this, I have it now, and you can have it too. That's an advertisement.
Yeah.
I'm done. I don't think, well, when I say think, truth doesn't require your participation in it to be true. And the total perception of truth, there's no you in that anyway. So, you're just bragging. Again, we talked in the beginning of this show, I was talking about the residue of experience as being the only thing you can really take away.
Yeah.
And, if that sensitizes you to be a more compassionate, time-based entity, then great. You're doing really all you can up in here. But it really doesn't have anything to do with the actual experience and your ability to like hold it in your hand and bring it back and give to your friends. Like, that to me starts to break down pretty dang quick, like we shouldn't strive to have a great story to tell. We should be able to be, we should just set the table for the story to happen to us.
That's it. Totally. That's Joyce saying, leave storytelling to journalists. I'm here to do the extraordinary, which is the perfect lead in. That's what Joyce and Hemingway and Picasso and Duchamp, they're all sitting in Paris drinking coffee at a coffee shop, doing nothing. They're called flaneurs. It's called psychogeography. It's like we did when I went to Watkins Glen and saw the Dead, the band, and the Allman Brothers. It was all just, we're laid back, man. We're not doing anything. But that's a funny little flip because this is Shelby Foote saying a fact is not a truth until you love it. I'm curious your thoughts on that one.
I mean, it's my thoughts on, people. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a person that thinks that truth has dependencies. So, if you're equating facts with truth on that level, I wouldn't say it like that. I'd say that people's opinions become falsely turned into people's facts when they love them. I would say that probably, but I hold truth in a different area. I don't think it requires participation to be true. That's the only thing I am willing to sign off on with truth. I mean, everything else, it can be empirically true. But absolute truth is something that you don't get to bring that back here that much. And you got people, when they say that they can bring it back, everyone wants a little piece of it or something, but it winds up just being a sliver of what was even real anyway. And you can't rely on that. You could do that yourself. So I just, I don't know. I just don't think it requires your participation to be true. I'll leave it at that.
Really good, Randy, because this is Eartha Kitt. Great singer. Truth is a theory that is constantly being disproved. Only lies, it seems, go on forever. So that's an interesting, because
I don't know. I'm not like that about
I know, but she flips in that little thing. Only lies, it seems, go on forever. So here's the Marcel Proust question: on what occasion do you lie?
I'm always lying. No, I'm not lying.
Well, no, dude, Randy, that's back to Tom Waits. He goes, I didn't know I needed an occasion.
Right, exactly. It's like everything I say is a lie. That's what I'm trying to say. I mean, look, it's like, everything I say is a lie. I mean, I attempt to bring, the participationless concept of truth into my human affairs, let's just say.
Yeah.
you wind up getting it wrong a lot. So, if that's a lie, then, there it is. I don't set out to deceive, if that's what, lies mean. I also don't really, I don't know. I mean, lies are all things lasting forever and all that. 20 years, 100 years, it's like, a grain of sand, that kind of thing. It's like, I think thought dissipates into bigger streams and rivers.
Yeah.
I don't, I mean, it seems like it's all in just a ball, and it's like over here, and it's like the whole world, and it's that, and it's insane. And, but I'd still say it only can really exist in time. So.
Randy, what's the difference between art and science? Is there a difference?
I mean, I don't think the moment is any different of creation. Well, I mean, it's a matter of venue. It's like, I mean, everyone's dealing with vibrations. It's just some, I think there's a difference in terms of measure. If you're trying to measure something, it implies some degree of permanence, and maybe that's where artists and scientists differ a little bit. Well, I mean, painters, I don't know, but musicians, it's like, I'm not trying to make something that is measurable after the fact necessarily. I think a lot of musicians, they want to be measured, or they want to make recordings and stuff that can be quantified in the past. I don't deal with it on that level anymore, really, even though I live in a recording studio. No, I mean, I'm kind of done with it, after the moment. And maybe that's just the difference. Maybe that's just me, but science, I do think, the initial concept of discovery, I wouldn't say is any different, but the ability to, again, kind of quantify / organize it becomes what it becomes focused on after the fact. So maybe they're not different, because a lot of musicians try to do that. But the idea of art, it's just a difference in medium than, like if you're observing, and if you're involved in the dance of electrons and something unexpected happens that's, creative in that, I wouldn't say that's a whole lot different than, the moment of something happening in music that's unexpected and, seems greater than you or the band. So maybe that moment's the same, but, the just way that you handle it is different after the fact.
Really good, Randy, because Jean Cocteau said, art is science made clear. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it's multi-directional.
Yeah.
I don't know if it can be that way for sure. It could also probably be the other way around,
The other way too. Because McLuhan said James Joyce solved numerous problems which science has not even formulated as problems yet. And
right.
Tony Conrad, he was a great avant-garde musician who started Velvet Underground with Lou Reed, and then he went into the art world. He said, well, artists break rules that aren't even made yet.
Right. Yeah, well, you have to. You don't know you. That's my point. Like, it's like, well, I guess you're talking, yeah, the closer, yeah, I mean, around here in yeah, the closer you get to this idea of you is usually like, you're kind of on the right track, at least artistically. And I think that's where all those rules get broken and things like that. It's like, being careful about certain things doesn't matter anymore. And I think that does happen to an entity when it gets closer to itself, but it also can be very violent,
Yeah.
It's like, it's even like, stars forming out of black holes, or however that works. There's violence in that.
Totally. But it's also like, are the laws of nature cruel? Is that violent? Or is that just something that we anthropomorphize our words onto them,
Oh yeah, 100%. Because we're always thinking about our own imminent demise or whatever.
Yeah.
That none of that might all just not be true anyway.
Somebody
told you that. You thought you had a little dot over there that was like the ending of this thing that you are.
Yeah.
It may very well be, but it's not all you are necessarily, right?
Yeah.
So, don't sell yourself short. That's what
Well,
I
I think what you're touching on is the word mystery, because this Albert Einstein, the most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. It is the source of all true art and science. So I'm always intrigued by the mystery of this. Zappa was talking in the LA Free Press in 1969, and he mentioned Pauline Oliveros, work with sound above the audible and below, creating a mass. And this is what Frank said, not that it created a mass, it created something audible. It produced a sum indifference tone, which happened to be located within the audible frequency range. By combining something so high you couldn't hear it and something so low you couldn't hear it, it yields something in the middle you could hear. Whether you like it or not is another question. The concept's brilliant. So any thoughts? Because I try to get musicians to explain that to me all the time, and some of them go, I don't get it. But this sum indifference tone happened to be located within the audible frequency long.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I was just I don't know. I just did a gig with these horn guys that had done a gig with Jeff Baxter the night before from Steely Dan, and he's like a rocket scientist. But I would just, he was talking about, zoom in A440 all the way up the spectrum and you get green.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of see A440 more as red, but, when it's vibrating at that level, it's the color green, go down the other way, it's probably, some substance or something or part of something. It's like, that's the thing, that's what I was saying about the thought structures and things like that. It's like, I kind of perceive this idea that, linguistics and thought, are static structures in sort of a hyperdimensional state, in a different vibration, so to speak. How meaningful they are in that state is ascribed. I mean, probably some alien would eat it for breakfast. Maybe it's just food. This is how our version of feeding things in other dimensions is thought. That's why everyone's always fighting with each other here, because it produces great food.
It's totally,
it could be, or it's just, meaning is ascribed in a lot of these things, and
it's ascribed. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So I wanted to ask you really quick. Ben Ratliff's a music writer, and he says, I mean sound as it has long functioned among jazz players as a mystical term of art, as in every musician finally needs a sound, a full and sensible embodiment of their artistic personality, such that it can be heard in a single note. So like me and you could hear Miles and we go, oh, that's Miles. But Ben summarized it in 2 words. He said, Miles is fragile and pointed. Coltrane's slightly undercooked and urgent. If a music writer that you respected was going to summarize Randy's sound in 2 words, what 2 words would you go, hey, he got me?
I guess it would be random sparks of funkiness.
That is good. Random sparks of funkiness. Dude, that is so beautiful. I love it.
Or I could have just said random sparks, because I think my last name, Funk, actually means like the spark of something. So
I did the longest interview with George Clinton ever, and we talked about the word funk, because if you look it up etymologically, it says smell. It's there's all kinds of things, but I think it's
I like to think of it as a spark of life.
Yeah.
Like the je ne sais quoi of it all. And I guess, I mean, again, me being versed in Randy Funkness, just because I'm in that body right now, I mean, I know how to be the spark, I know how to play that role up in here. And, it kind of works out. It works out for me. Not in an egotistical way, but just in a, someone's got to do it kind of way.
Very good. Well, I spoke with Michael Apted about 40 years ago. I says, why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast. Most people don't know Abel Gance invented rapid montage in 1922, but it flourished in the 80s with MTV, to the point where Marty Scorsese says, I cut my films faster because of MTV. And Michael Apted goes, because we've learned to take in information faster. I ask this question with a bias. Can we literally learn to take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
Can we be brainwashed? Did you say to take it?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a biased way of asking the question. The question's basically, can humans learn to take in information faster?
Well, I think information in its totality is whatever it happens to be. I think our ability to augment the pipeline that comes down can be made wider. I wouldn't call it faster. I'd call it wider.
Wider, good word change. But really, Randy, the hidden question is it literally possible to multitask?
Yes.
Really? Wow.
I don't know. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Both in 3D and in 10D. You're multitasking now. I mean, you're all doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was interviewing a lady once, and I could tell, because you can watch their eyes when they're doing their email while they're being interviewed. And I says, is it literally possible to multitask? She goes, yeah, I'm checking my email right now as we're talking. And, you know, it was evident to me, because you do Zoom after 4 or 5 years, you can tell if people are diddling on their cell phone or not.
I was thinking of it more like, you know, cellular metabolism is happening while I'm talking to you. So I'm
that case is amazing, because you know, they a lot of times people use Evelyn Green speed reading. They go, oh, we learned to read faster, you know, and that's just like, then people go, well, if you do it faster, you're not retaining it as well as if you do it slow.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have any use for any of that anymore. Like,
yeah,
you know, a better conversation, not between us, but maybe a better concept is, you know, can you not think at all?
That's an amazing thing. How do you turn your brain off? Yeah, I mean,
just like not worry about all this stuff and just like, you know, how about perception without thought, guys? Like, you know, can we talk about that? What does that look like? You know, what does it sound like? You know, to me, music is, when it's happening to me, you know, my commentary on it is always in the past. The actual note itself, I have no idea where that came from. I have a little bit of a framework, which is the guitar, the context of the band, maybe the room I'm in, possibly what I ate for lunch or something. But I don't know why that note happened at that time at all. I'm as much of a spectator as anybody else.
Well, that's a theme you brought up. We're going to get to that, a return to it, as I loved in the part one was.
I think I'm a liar.
Well, no, I think you're grounded in truth, and I appreciate this, because this thing you said is, how do you let go? So the first question is, to get to that point again, is what do you think the motive of the cave artist was? Your guess or hunch? The cave music, the cave dance, the cave artist. What was their motive?
Well, I mean, they wanted someone to recognize something.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it was there. I don't think it may have just been like, you know, them trying to express what they thought they looked like or something, or what they saw, you know, in a drawing, you know, like, do you agree that, like, I kind of think I look like this a little bit, you know, like this idea of consensus reality that we live in? Maybe it was an attempt to validate that, like, you know, I think that maybe he wasn't drawing himself. Maybe he was drawing his friend, you know, and it's like, yeah, you know, we both kind of look like this a little bit or something.
I love that consensus reality. Randy, what's more important, conviction or compromise?
Conviction.
Yeah. You've accomplished a lot. How do you rate these three elements? Luck, skill, and ambition. What played the biggest role, second and third?
What was the second word again?
Luck, skill, and ambition.
Mm. Ambition, skill, luck.
Oh, ambition's 1, skills 2, and 3's luck. Really good. I appreciate that. T.S. Eliot said poetry's outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
It's in elf.
Wait, is that spelled ELF?
Yes.
What is that? Is that character?
No, I just made it up.
I thought
it's in Rudetut. No, it's in Rat.
You know, RAT.
Yeah. Well, my name in Rat is Rudetut, but you can figure it out. It's easy. No, it's nothing amazing. It was a great way for us. Well, Adam would appreciate this. We needed to talk about things in school that, like we couldn't have teachers really knowing about.
Hello.
And we were able to talk in Rat to get our intentions known.
You made up a language called Rat?
I don't know if we made it up, but it worked. I never heard anyone speak it before we did, and it was just
Rat. You know what, Randy, that's the most amazing. One person who came to my Finnegan's Wake group like 25 years ago, she go, "Oh, I get it. This is like the secret language you make up with your brother or sister or your friend, so your parents don't know what you're talking about." And I says, "That's what Finneganese is." He invented. See, most people don't realize there's over 60 languages in Finnegan's Wake. It's basically in English.
No, but there's some that haven't even been invented yet that are in there.
Right, but that's the thing. He invented Finneganese. He invented new language. It's sort of like Dolly. Dolly invented.
Me and Adam it's a different language. Rudetut is not really that. Me and Adam actually have another language called Spaghetti that nobody knows about. But no, Rudetut is structural. Rudetut is simple. Rudetut is just to consonants you add AT onto them and vowels stay the same. That's why my name is Rut-A-Nut-Dut-Yut. Randy. Okay, that's easy. But like me and Adam and this kid Ward White we started pronouncing things differently to each other, and we are the only ones that did it with each other. Spaghetti being one of the main ones, and that kind of became the defining word. I don't know why that happened really between us. It wasn't really intentional. It just started happening.
Yeah.
It seemed to mean more than just the word, and we'd get a good laugh out at more. So stuff like that. But I can't remember what we were talking about.
Okay, no, it will come back around because Randy, this is where I wanted to go. This is really fun. I appreciate it. Two of my film heroes, George Manupelli says, "Ignore yourself." Jonas Mekas says, "There is no self-expression." And Cecil Taylor says, "I'm just a vehicle, and this stuff just comes through."
I work with Cecil. I know. Okay. I know Cecil.
Okay. Is art making, music making more self-expression or more you're a vehicle for whatever technologies, cultures, and environments are dominant?
Well, at the lower levels, it's self-expression. At the higher levels, you're just a vehicle. If you can get them all to line up, then I guess you're a human being making music for a living or something. I don't know. But the more important piece is the vehicle part. That's the only thing I've been talking about on this interview, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only thing. That's why there is an other, that's the alien. That's the unknown. That's the not you, that kind of stuff. You need to know when you get hip to that vibe, you never really, yourself is just your own kind of BS commentary on the thing in hindsight,
that's why Zappa wrote the song, "We Are the Other People." That otherness is what you're talking about. But can art making be egoless? Can music making be egoless?
So look, I mean, yes, it can, as something that, may or may not require human participation in it to be true. the human participation part of it, from my experience, oscillates / vacillates between those two dichotomies. And, there is the, for me, it's like, pure energy states. And then you have to kind of reset a little bit. That's the other side where you structurally, there's a little bit of awareness of self-expression in that, of who you are. And then it kind of flies out the window into the thing. So, it's a balance. I think that something that's really important about, traversing states is that there are those periods of rebalancing that's kind of set up the other stuff to happen. So, it's not a steady state, finite concept, but can it exist without ego? Of course, it's always existing without that.
Yeah.
Your ego is the ability that's allowing you to channel into it in greater or lesser degrees, and release from that is opening the channel, resetting so that you can have the channel become wider as your ego, knowing that it's kind of limited. So it's trying to reset itself to become unlimited again.
Yeah. Randy, this is really good because it leads into, the way I used to ask that question a couple back was, is ambition based more on fear or joy? And everybody go, fear. And then everybody go, no, joy. And that's like, Paul Schrader wrote Taxi Driver. He says, the role of the artist is to attempt to sell out but fail. And everybody goes, oh, that's so cool. And I goes, no, that's fucking bullshit, because it's like, oh, my art is so pure that I tried to sell out but I failed. So you're someone I can lay the cards on the table honestly, and I really respect that you look at things with a bigger picture view. You don't like answers.
If you're thinking, you're stinking, man.
Yeah, that's it. But here's the thing. I wanted to go into this because you covered the egoless thing so well, is that people told me over the last 2 years, oh, it's all about suffering. Ram Dass, Dylan, everybody's suffering. We have to have suffering. And I'm like, why? That's bullshit. But I'm a positive kind of person, but I know you can integrate suffering, Jung in the shadow. But
I've gone through that.
It's
not true.
Here's the quote by Tom Waits that I wanted you to tell reaction. I like beautiful melodies telling me terrible things. The world is a hellish place, and bad writing is destroying the quality of our suffering. Which is totally cynical, but it is like, is there quality to suffering? Like, no, I don't know. I'm just, any thoughts on suffering as a motive in art? And
I don't have an opinion on whether it's good or bad. I have an opinion on calling it something.
Yeah.
If you call it something, then you just, whatever chain you buy into about the meaning you ascribe to that thing is pretty much going to be it. I don't approach music like, I know the feeling, I know the vibe, I know the art vibe of suffering. And there, the tragic hero, a lot of times Hendrix gets kind of put in that position of being that guy, the tragic hero that was, whipped around by the industry and ultimately was looking for his love to be, and died crucified on the stand of mystery and drugs and alcohol and all that. And, I don't think he was like that at all. I think he was.
No. Look at that line. I Bruce Hampton sang it. I can hear happiness. Who would write that lyric? People go, he's the greatest guitarist ever. But what about him as a lyricist? I can hear happiness. Right. That is an amazing line. That's positive.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to get at, I think, and I can only really speak from my own life and music journey or whatever, but I really try. When I say try, it gets weird. I don't mean to say try, but like, the greatest musical experiences of my, engagement with this structure or this thing called music has really been when I didn't have anything to do with its production coming through me. Really just, that's all I can really say. I've written lyrics, and and I know that lyrics attach again these ideas of linguistics, which often deal with the idea of joy and suffering and things like that, because that's what human beings do. But I don't think of music necessarily as a human construction at its core. So, as a guitar player, I'm just trying to let music express its true nature that isn't necessarily human and isn't necessarily limited by time. That's my job. My daughter writes lyrics and they're beautiful, but my wife is always kind of like, but there's this sad quality to her writing. Is she okay? Well, of course she's okay. She's dealing with her linguistical perception of things, and that's just that. But maybe if I thought, oh, shit, that's all there is out there. Like misery, or just human beings coming up with different ways to be miserable so that they can justify the fact that they don't know what it's like to not be in time, shit like that. I'm not involved in that. That's not where I just don't happen to come. My daily life isn't in that. But I also am not willing to say it's any better or worse than anything I'm dealing with, because I deal with it on certain levels. But in music, I do try and do I do the minimum amount to let something else happen, and then if someone comes up to me and is it's like with compliments, they're always so weird, because what are they really? Who are they complimenting here? But it's like. I think it's like, I know I'm doing my job okay if someone doesn't come up to me necessarily and say, you're so rocking, man. That was rocking. And then there is that part of me, you'll see it in videos. I rock out. But people come up to me and say, thank you for sharing that with us. That's where I'm kind of from. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I like to be in that game. That's the game. Yeah. That's the business I'm in.
I love that word, sharing. That was good, Randy, because it goes along with this. You've done this for many years. Tell me one major element of your creativeness that stayed the same and one major element that's changed.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think the thing that stayed the same has always been this, this vibration, this energy that at a certain organized frequency spectrum is called music. Hasn't changed at all. And I do think that, the way that I kind of attempt to connect with it has changed a little bit over the years, not all that much, but, there were some quantifiable milestones in me solidifying my approach, I guess I would say, a lot, like, for example, in my younger years, right. Like I would definitely, a certain nervous energy would often, I could always tell a night where I think a lot of guitar strings would break that night. And I even got to the point where other people in the band could tell maybe something from the way my vibration was set up before the gig or however I approached it, where I was susceptible to, like, slightly slightly deconstructive energies that would derail the channel, so to speak. I'd have to sort of fend that off sometimes, and strings would break and weird stuff, just weird shit would happen, man. I don't even know why.
Yeah.
And that's changed over the years. That battle is sort of over. There was a time where I thought about my relationship with music as kind of a double-edged sword, especially when I was actually really, when I was involved in it, like, 24/7, every single day, I had developed this sort of, like, it was almost like a relationship that I was having with, like, a girl or something, where it's like, sometimes I would be really irreverent towards it and it would just sort of like bitch slap me back.
Yeah.
And other times, I'd be really in a state of loving humbleness to it, and it would reward in kind. And, but it was unpredictable sometimes for me and caused me a lot of fucking problems or a lot of perceived suffering, in a way, which in a way, you could almost self-perpetuate the art that way. You would use the energy from the suffering to kind of justify your tragic existence and why you had to keep going, make it happen, before your ultimate succumbing to this great force that you supposedly love so much. And now you're a tragic hero. I mean, I can do that all day long and I'll do it. I used to do it a lot more. I don't really do that much. I mean, I don't have that with music anymore. Right now, we're like best buddies.
Oh, that is so cool. Well, it follows perfect, Randy. Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
Oh, I got to just talk about music again. I use, when you think you're playing the wrong note and you pull back and that's your weakness and then you try and make it right, and then all of a sudden it's just like a never ending folly basically until like you realize nothing matters anyway. But if you, I just let everything just come out. And I don't know. It's not wrong anymore in that space.
Yeah.
There's no weakness. It never was. That's what I mean. It's like, that's your whole life. You thought you had all these things that were wrong with it and you did everything wrong and you fucked it all up. Pardon my French. And now you're judged and you're dead and you're dumb and you're stupid and you're going to do it all over again, man. Because that's how reincarnation works. I don't have anything to do with that shit. I have nothing to do with it. I don't have, that's just so limited. And, all right, some guy tried to write it down again. Just stop writing it all down. Stop thinking about it. Stop thinking critically about things. Nobody ever really figured it out that way. Didn't you guys realize that? I'd say that to the whole world. Like, it didn't work, guys. Like, you need truth in the form of direct experience. And your relationship to that is not dependent on anything else.
Right. That's you said reincarnation. I love
all cults are bad, by the way.
Say it again.
All cults are bad for that.
Yeah.
That guy's wrong. Whoever said that was wrong. He's absolutely wrong. They're all bad because they attempt to establish a common thought pattern that tends to work in most, if not all, situations. That's not how shit works, guys. It's wrong. The best thing you could do is be you can be the residue of experience that comes from the idea of something greater than you. That's it. And you can be humble towards others. And if someone shows up on your door with a machine gun and they're going to shoot you, you can defend your family with the full knowledge that there's no such thing as death either. Bam. There it is, guys. Just do that. See what happens. See if you actually bend reality into that never happening, right? I don't know. What do I know?
No, a lot. It remind me of two things. The great line, "You nonconformists are all alike," or in the Monty Python film where they go, "Repeat after me. We are all individuals." And the one guy goes, "Not me." And then, you find out it was an extra who spoke out of turn. And the director goes, "Keep that line in there." but that's this is a line, Randy, that comes up sometimes. It's called "You create what you resist." Bob Goldthwait, the comedian, morphed it into "You are what you hate." James Joyce said, "It's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve." And Louis Buñuel nailed it. He said, "Thank God I'm an atheist." So this line.
I have one.
Okay.
I think, therefore I think I am.
So this is the question. Any thoughts on this line, "You create what you resist"? I'm not saying you, Randy, but one creates what one resists. Any thoughts?
Yeah, there's, things there's in this dimension. There's cycles and repeatability. And I tend to think that, it's like energy. It's like vibrations. If you bounce it off or you resist it and put up a wall, it's going to bounce off of it and could come back in some other way, until you really absorb it for what it is. Let's just say, something like that. I'd say that happens. It happens.
Yep. These are 5 quick Alan Watts questions off the top of your head in just a couple words. 1, who started it all?
No one.
2, are we going to make it?
Yes.
3, where do we put it?
Everywhere.
4, who's cleaning it up?
No one.
5, is it serious?
Yes and no.
All right. Yeah, Randy, you're one of the best. Usually people don't get, I say just a few words, and you were you're a good listener, dude. I know you're a great musician. Okay. How do you find peace of mind?
I have no idea.
Dude, I think you do find it somehow.
No, I remember it, I guess.
Right. Can you forget to die?
You can remember to forget to die.
Right. What's the most significant difference between men and women, physical aside?
They're smarter. Shameless Grateful Dead quote.
No, is that in a Dead song?
Well, I don't think they wrote it. They played this song called "Man Smart, Women Are Smarter" a lot. You know.
Wow.
Let us put men and women. It's just, you can check it out. No, Major. I don't know. I mean, you know, my wife and I are pretty good, kind of archetypal male, female-ish kind of thing. I mean, I don't know. She's a little rounder and softer, I guess, on certain. I think that you know, I think women might be in general maybe a little more thoughtful on how they respond to things.
How long have you been with her?
Well, we've been together for 26 years.
How do you explain the longevity?
She puts up with me very well.
It's good. Okay, you know, you touched on
Very
some
nice person, you know. She's
beautiful.
very patient.
And that's beautiful. And so we touched on alchemy, and I wanted to return to that for a second because both Preston Sturgis and Zappa are alchemists. They take 2 known things, put them together, and create a third unknown thing. Right. So Preston Sturgis, screwball comedy, and Frank's theatrical rock, whatever. But they do this extra level. They satirize their new invention. They're not out to invent something new. It just happens naturally. But then they satirize themselves. Like, you would have loved this. One time I was in Vegas in the lobby, and I was watching this band play, you know, Mustang Sally in the lobby of a casino. I goes, this is like the fucking mothers of invention. They're making fun of Mustang Sally, but they're doing it in a way that's not evident that it's satire. You know, it's like, oh yeah. And so I asked my friend who wrote for Robin Williams, I says, can satire be destructive? And he goes, that's the job of satire. But if me or you do a cartoon in a certain country, they kill us. Some people think dying is destructive. And Swift compared satire to a mirror in which people could see every face but their own. What's the function of satire?
The function of satire is to create universes.
Wow.
Like, yeah, that's what it does. Because that's what its job is. Like, that's what it does. And that's what it does.
What's the function of laughter?
Well, in the realm of creating universes, laughter is the spark that ignites the creation.
Right.
It's like the cosmic giggle.
Oh, I love that word. I wrote that down today listening to Alan Watts.
Oh, really? That's funny.
He said the word wiggle, and I goes, oh, I'm going to write a poem and rhyme it with cosmic giggle.
You know? Well, see, great.
And so Gurdjieff said laughter is the reconciliation of yes and no. But Steve Allen, McLuhan loved to quote Steve Allen. He says, behind every joke, there's a grievance. Well, leave the word every out. Behind a joke, there's a grievance. Any thoughts on that?
Sure. Sure.
Which way should toilet paper come off the roll, over or under?
I'm gonna go with over, even though it winds up being under most of the time.
The patent is 100 years old and it has it over. 90% of people say over, but the people who say under have their reasons.
Well, I was thinking of a few of those reasons, and the thing that made me choose over was I felt like it'd have a less chance of unraveling the further.
Right. Randy, if you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
I'd say, wow, that's a good one. I'd say, don't be so serious.
Utah Phillips says anarchy is making rules for yourself and not other people. Who's entitled to make the rules?
For me?
Well, you put it in the context you want. You could say for you or well, that's a good follow-up. I mean, basically, that's funny. You say for me, you answered a question with a question that you win. That's what this series is all about, inventing new questions. Because I'll just flip to the next part and you can go back if you want. The funny thing is about Utah's statement is it's etymologically, that's what the word freedom breaks down to, giving oneself one's own laws. What does freedom mean to you now?
I mean, there's a technical definition. Freedom's nothing left to lose. I'll go with Janice or whoever.
Yeah.
Chris Christopherson.
Yeah.
On a technical level, though, a scientific level, no, a creation level, I think freedom is the ability to oscillate/vacillate between localized consciousness entities and non.
Yeah.
That's it.
You're
either a localized entity,
yeah,
or you're not.
Yeah.
And freedom is the ability to perceive both of those states.
Yeah.
And you might say that's a contradiction because how can something that's non-localized perceive anything? Well, I'd invite you to figure out for yourself what that actually means. I can see what it's like to be a singular localized point of observation. I can, here it is. But, I would invite you to find out if there is such a thing as a non-localized mode of perception and whether you think that being able to move through both of those states is freedom or not.
Yeah. Steve Martin loves to quote David Mamet. Art is a product of the unconscious mind. I felt that we've been together here for almost 90 minutes and we're both pretty conscious. But the Lakoff and the neuroscientist linguists say, oh, no, you operate 80% unconsciously. So this thought, art is a product of the unconscious mind. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it's style. The unconscious mind is a state it passes through before coming out.
Right. That's good. It's a state that it passes through. That's, yeah. Because that's
you might pick up a shoe or some little piece of material as it passes through, and then that just becomes incorporated into the whole somehow.
Well, that's also Milan Kundera wrote Unbearable Likeness of Being. That is why I love writing, because the character that I'm writing about can go further than I can. Yeah, right. If you write something on a piece of paper, how can that go further than you can?
Well, I mean, it's not bound by the constraints of your like seemingly solid body inhabitants.
But you're saying I ended with a question almost. You're telling me you're asking.
Like maybe,
But I mean,
well, because I mean, if you write a character, like you could write that it, shape shifts into a 20-dimensional being and then comes back, and like,
right.
you don't think that you can do that right now, but that doesn't mean you can't. But you don't think you can.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Shape shifting. I like that.
You said that because somebody wrote that somewhere, like shape shifting or something.
Shape shifting is good. Mike Kelly said, "Art is making your problems other people's problems." Any comment?
I don't know. I mean, it's like, again, it's like, what level are you dealing with things at? It's like, the most morbid painting is that, and then there's the molecular way that it all hangs together and the colors. I mean, sure, at some level,
Yeah.
again, I feel like a lot of those types of quotes, it's like they're just trying to kind of like play into your like ego self-perception of art, and it's just like I don't have a lot to do with that anymore when it comes to art. I just don't. It's just like not what I go for. Other people, maybe that's where they want to affect somebody's nervous system or something. That's not the place where I care about operating, so to speak.
But did you learn that, Randy, from the way your parents raised you on your own? How did you come to that?
I came to it purely through the experience of it. I mean, it's not some concept.
Right.
It's not my brain decided that was a cool thing to say to you on an interview. It's not like that. It's like, I'm not talking about esoteric worlds that only cool ass motherfuckers can get to. I'm just talking about what happened to have happened to me while I've been here, man. It's no different than the hamburger I had last night. It's just might taste differently.
Or the hamburger you got for McCoy Tyner. That was
you remember that.
That was a great story.
He loved that thing. Yeah, that was as important as anything he'd ever done ever up until that moment. Really. I'm not quantifying it in that way as much anymore. Maybe that's what's changed.
Yeah.
Because I definitely, in my earlier years, even though it was always about the journey, like you mentioned earlier, and things like that, I bought into like magic and like, crazy stuff can happen. The rocks can move, things like that, and it's all true.
Right.
But it's not like the point so much anymore.
Yeah.
Like maybe when I was younger, it was like, if I could grow wings as a transdimensional bird and travel to ancient Egypt through, the use of a abundantly available tryptamine or something, like, let's go. And look, I brought back ancient languages and, dialects that don't even exist anymore. But, that's all everyone did. It's like all that stuff is great, but it doesn't even matter to me much anymore, because I'm getting out of the way.
Yeah.
It's not about my logging cool ass shit anymore. It's
great.
About getting out of the way.
Wait, what year were you born?
73.
Okay, a couple more and we're out of here. It's really been fun. If a publisher was going to release your autobiography, off the top of your head, what would the title be?
Nobody.
Okay, they want to scent, the glue, and the binding. What smell?
Lavender linen, baby.
Whoa. Okay, they want to build a statue in your honor. Where would you want it displayed, and what would it be made of?
It would be made of Slinkies.
I never had that answer. And where?
It would be be on a transcendental stairway to heaven.
Oh my God, that's that movie by what's his name? Michael Powell. That's beautiful.
I have no idea what movie that is, but
it is really cosmic movie. Anyways, tell me something good you never had and you never want.
And I never want it.
It's good, you never had it, and you never want it.
Oh, it's good. I've never had it and I never want it. I don't know. Maybe hot dogs.
No, you've never had a hot dog?
I have had a hot dog. Sorry. I don't like hot dogs. It's like food comes to mind, but I guess maybe like, I don't know, traveling to New Guinea or something.
Okay. If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
I would try and laugh.
Try and laugh. That's good. Try and laugh. I love it. Okay.
Once the shit came out of my mouth, right?
What's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
I don't get inspired from culture.
Wow.
I don't really. Culture's not really my friend, man. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I just.
Okay. What if we dropped the word cultural? What's a shift you see developing today? Like some change that's developing today that inspires you.
I think that the proliferation of plant-based knowledge is starting to spread at a higher rate.
That's good. Plant-based knowledge, really good. Okay. What's a question that remains unresolved for you?
A question that remains unresolved for me, like as in I'm in turmoil about it.
No, again, you put it in the context you want. It's just you could put it in that context if you want. It's just what's a question that remains unresolved, and you could put in.
All right, a question that remains unresolved for me at this point is: will transdimensional aliens continue to shut down nuclear launch missiles if they were ever launched?
Good. Shut them down. Okay. Now, how has music shaped your behavior? All about it. Playing it, producing it. How has music shaped your behavior?
I think it shaped my behavior by, putting my behavior into perspective, really, and it's really the whole conversation again, folded back on itself, which is, the phases of my relationship with music up until today have ultimately helped me to become a more sensitive time-based being.
There you go.
Wow. And that is a show of gratitude. It's a show of the ability to heal, both just heal, period, myself, others, whatever. And it does give us a sliver of truth that there is something greater than just the sum of its parts. Yeah. And it's not over yet. I mean, Sly said everyone's a star.
That's it, dude. To quote Sly, you're Godhead to me, man. Sly lived in a fucking trailer on Vermont Avenue in LA. And I was like, my friend filmed him a lot there. I was like, this guy is so fucking cool. He says, I'm checking out, man. I'm going to go live as a homeless person. I thought that was the cool. Most people go, oh my God, I regret that. Because, when he died at 85 and Elliot Ingberg died at 85, they both were pioneers in music just in the last year. And they just said, I'll give you 15 years of my life. The rest, I'm just going to chill out. That's enough. They gave us fucking so much shit in 15 years. It's like, and I mean, you like, oh my God, I got to crank it out for 60, 70 years. And then I got to get my kids to back me like every fucking rock band does now. You play the same shit you played for 40 years. It's like, give me a break. Anyways, I love when you quote Sly. I mean,
well, to be technical, I was quoting Little Richard quoting Sly.
Oh, that's good. Well, that's my favorite. My favorite moment in a film about Jimi Hendrix is when
that's it.
Little Richard goes, Jimi Hendrix made my big toe shoot upside my boot.
That's what I was quoting, that interview. He's like, he was always a star. There were nights that he used to make my big toe shoot up in my boot. He was that good. That good.
No, the other line in that movie is that black woman who died. She got her bit in the New York Times. She says, Jimi Hendrix put the motherfucking icing on the motherfucking cake.
Oh yeah, that was Fane Pridgeon who said that.
Oh my God, you know her name. That's great.
I met her once, actually. I think I met her once at a studio in Stamford.
That is such a great line.
This guy Bob Blank had a studio in Stamford, and I was an intern there, and he fired me the first day I worked there because the second day I worked there. He was recording a horn section, and he said to me after the session, he said, don't talk to the musicians.
Oh, really? Wow.
All right. I said, all right. And then the next day, the next time I was there, I think Sting was going to be recording there. And the guy was super making sure I was like locked away, And he said to me when I left that second time, he said, you don't need to really come back. And I walked out, but I had forgotten my jacket in the studio. So I had to knock on the door and ask, can I get my jacket back? And Fane Pridgeon answered the door.
Oh my God, isn't that cool?
And I had known about Hendrix. I was only like 14 or 15 then, and I recognized her. And I was like, and she was like, yes, and then Bob came and blocked me and just shut the door in my face. And something like maybe like 15 years later, I was pretty, I was in a very big career moment, I guess, whatever, in music. And I was standing at the bank, and he was ahead of me in line in the bank. And I had, I think I just come from being at the Grammys or something, like lots of cool stuff had happened and all that. And I recognized him, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and then I just turned around. We never said anything. Bob, if you're out there, I still love you, baby.
Beautiful. Everybody is a star. That's beautiful.
No, well, that's what he was saying. You just have to get poured back in the Big Dipper.
Yeah.
So that other people can see your great works and be inspired themselves. So, I'm just trying to, be poured back over the Big Dipper, so I can be helpful. And
you are helpful. You've been helpful to me. Okay, Randy, I got two more and we're out of here.
All right.
This is Thornton Wilder, 1928. Art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for over 3 hours with me in 2 parts. What's it really all about for you?
It's all about love.
Yeah. Pretty simple, pretty direct.
I'm sorry, I don't, I'd love to say it's about something else, but it's not.
Don't be sorry, man. That's the Eden Abe, nature boy. The greatest thing you'll ever learn is to love and be loved in return.
Nothing else matters.
Yeah. Okay, last question. What gives you the most optimism?
My relationship to beauty.
Wow, that's good. Okay, I asked the first question I asked in a part 1 was what is the best thing for a human being? Wilhelm Reich said the best thing for a human being is another human being. And the last question I asked is, what gives you the most optimism? That's what they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life. And he said, other people. Sure been fun spending this time with another person, especially because it was you, Randy. Thank you so much, man.
You, man, you too.
Yeah, we got to hang out. When you come to LA, come to Venice and we'll play a funky song together.
Oh, man, I used to hang out there all the time.
Yeah.
Long time ago for me.
And you know, funk music is my favorite genre, and I love it because it's the words evoke more than their meaning. Funky is fun is the key. Funky.
Well, I've never actually played funk music, actually. More of a rock guy, but I will say that this guy wanted to make these tokens called Funkins.
Yeah.
That was a cool name for a token.
Yeah.
But yes, you got to put the fun in funk.
Fun and funk. That's what it's been so fun talking with you. Thank you so much. And thanks.
Great one. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
I'm going to hit the end broadcast, but I know this will never end. And